Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the FedEx Fall Shriners DFS Tactics show. We have a lot to get into. We have a forecast to update, lineups to construct and figure out how we want to optimize, figure out our top pivots, figure out who the best fades are, including I've got a 6K play that's not only in my top 10 this week, but a 6K play that's in my top 5 in my rankings. So stick around for the end of the show where you see the rankings and the lineups that I'm using that player. But we got a lot to get into. I'm looking forward to it. Trying to build on the near hit of Ben Griffin last week and improve on the utter disaster that was DFS last week. So let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better DFS or golf DFS player. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description to the video, there are links to all of the social media, my X or Twitter and Instagram, where I post research every week on the PGA Tour. I did that this past Monday around a couple of patterns of the former winners of the Shriners. So if you want to see the research that I do weekly for the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site, X or Instagram. X is also where I place my betting cards that I bet every week for the PGA Tour, and that'll be no different. That comes out after the DFS Tactics show tonight and every Wednesday night. So if you want to see the weekly wagers that I make on the PGA Tour, give me a follow over at X. And then finally, for social media, Gabe's X or Twitter handle is in the description. He writes a very good article called The Fringe. It's a very good read. It is a free article to subscribe to, and normally on Wednesday evenings you will be able to catch us in his Substack chat after the DFS Tactics show. He had an obligation tonight. He is not going to be able to do that, so unfortunately you're just stuck with me this evening. But on every other Wednesday night you will be able to join me and Gabe over in his Substack chat. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you are a subscriber to his article. It is free to do so. It's a great read. Highly suggest you go do so. So go show Gabe some support. Follow him over on social media and subscribe to that article. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. First things first, I'm going to post that the usual poll question at the start of the show. It'll be around the 10K plays this week. So I want to hear from you all. Please respond in chat with your answer to the poll question, and then feel free to jump in chat with any questions you have. Lineup construction, player A versus player B, who do you think's the winner, all that good stuff. Would love to hear from the community. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the fall FedEx Shriners DFS. And we're going to start, as we always do, on a Wednesday evening with the updated forecast over at Windfinder. And let me post that poll question. It is a very simple poll question this evening. Which 10K play are you most confident in this week? There are 4 players priced at 10K this week. Ludwig Aubert at 1100 or 1100. That'd be great. 11,000. Tom Kim at 10.9. Cam Davis at 10.3. JT Poston at 10,000. Even which player are you most confident in this week? So would love to hear from you all in that regard. Anyway, the updated forecast for Summerlin, which is just west of Las Vegas proper. It has been pretty solid throughout the week that they were going to have a lot of wind today, and looks like there's going to be quite a bit of wind tomorrow. Now, the amount has varied, but it's been pretty consistent that early on tomorrow morning there appears to be a lot of wind in the forecast, and it dies off throughout the day. So quite clearly, you have a pretty darn strong Thursday PM favor for tomorrow. Now, Friday looks much the same. A lot of wind in the morning, but not nearly as much as you can see. And it's going to be very calm in the afternoon. That's why I have a fairly significant advantage for the Thursday PM, Friday AM portion of the cut or the wave. And as I do every week, make sure that, or if you have the luxury, make sure you are able to stay up later to get the updated forecast, or wake up early tomorrow to get the most up-to-date forecast in the morning in terms of wind finder and forecast and whatnot in terms of wind. I will tell you there's no rain in the forecast. We shouldn't have to worry about that. But if this is the last forecast you have to go on, I would suggest a pretty strong favor of a Thursday PM, Friday AM split favor. The Thursday morning has the worst wind, it looks like. And supposedly in the afternoon, Friday, they're going to be dealing with more wind than they're dealing with Thursday afternoon. Again, all we can do is go by the forecast. So I've got a pretty significant advantage for the Thursday PM, Friday AM favor, or half of the draw. So with that, we'll move on to Fantasy National. Considering we just got back from Windfinder, or just checked the forecast on Windfinder, let's check some moderate and windy conditions. And we're going to have to expand this time frame back to 2022. As you can see, there just isn't enough rounds. Going back to the beginning of 2022, our top players in moderate and windy conditions have been Emiliano Grillo, Scott Piercy, Tom Hoagie, Alex Smalley, Alex Noren, Christian Bezadenhout, Adam Long, Scott Stallings, Kevin Yu, and Ryan Armour. Those are your top 10 in terms of wind performance in the past now close to 2 years. Scrolling on down a little bit, more players that just missed the top 10 count. Taryn, Ben Griffin, Ben Taylor, Andrew Novak, Patrick Rogers, S.H. Kim, Lonto Griffin, Adam Hadwin, David Lipsky, Nate Lashley. There's your top 20. And you can see to about the top 30 or so. There's your top players in the wind. And then players who have not played well in the wind past couple of years. Andrew Landry, Nick Watney, Jim Herman, Max McGreevy. Again, Brandon Matthews has withdrawn. Jason Duffner. Russell Knox has not played well at all in the wind. Richie Wierenski, Jimmy Walker, Matthias Schwab, and so on down. There's your bottom list of players in that regard in terms of wind. But even with winds slightly picking up, we have talked all week how there has been one overarching filter that we have been going to look at this week. It is the easy to par filter. The Shriners has traditionally played easy year over year over year. So I'm going to remove the wind and wind filters. And in rounds that have been easy this calendar year, our top performers have been Doug Gim, Peter Quest, Adam Hadwin, JT Poston, Eric Cole, Luke List, Ludwig Ober, Nikolai Højgaard, Alex Smalley, Siwoo Kim. A little further down, Tom Kim, Bo Hostler, Alex Noren, Aaron Rai, Christian Bezadenhout, and so on down to about the top 30 or so there. And then the other end of the spectrum, players who have not played well when a round has been easy for whatever reason. Brian Stewart, Ryan Brim, Max McGreevy, Will Gordon, Dylan Fratelli. I believe Brent Grant has also withdrawn. Tyson Alexander, Andrew Novak, Andrew Landry, Jim Herman, Jimmy Walker, Eric Van Rooyen, and so on down the list there. Your bottom or poor performers when a round has been easy this calendar year. All right, with that, let's go ahead and move on over to the mixed condition model that I've made for this week in the Shriners. And we spent quite a bit of this week looking at how approach has been pretty steady in terms of how important it is for the players that play well here, but not overly so. It's still below the average full field course in terms of importance, so I didn't want to ignore it, but we only have 10% in strokes gained approach. I talked all week how I felt around the green was going to have a bit of a factor. Ended up only with 5% in my mixed condition model, but certainly an aspect that I did not want to ignore. 10% on bent greens, and again, no filter. I don't feel confident in applying the fast speed filter. My guess would be that these greens will be labeled as fast, but I'm not confident enough in it to filter all the way down to that level. So we're just looking at bent green tonight, bent grass putting tonight in the mixed condition model. But the most heavy portion of the mixed condition model, full 20%. We talked about it all week. Birdies or better gained when it's easy to par. This course yielded the third most birdies on the PGA Tour last season. There are just tons and tons and tons of birdies. Not necessarily a lot of eagles, although they do happen here. Just lots and lots of birdies. So I want to see who is able to go low, and I always prefer to combine a scoring metric like birdies or better gained, bogeys avoided, whatnot, with a scoring filter, easy to par, difficult to par, etc. So 20% birdies or better gained when it's easy. 10% in fairways. I began this week incorrectly thinking that distance was going to matter. And then as we went through the week, looking at the data in Microsoft Excel, looking at the prior leaderboards, driving distance just did not matter. Instead, it was the fairways. So 10% in fairways. I did end up using the easy to par filter on that. Could be a little incorrect to do so, but the one thing I am confident about with the Shriners and TPC Summerlin is that it will be easy. It has been traditionally. In fact, Gabe and I have spent the past couple of days, talking about, filter usage, whether we want to use the easy to par, short course, fairways easy to hit, or difficult or whatnot. So have been a lot of talk about that between him and I, and hopefully we'll set something up to maybe put something out on social media where our thought processes are with that for you all. But we've spent a lot of time this week discussing filters, when to use them and whatnot. For me, I'm using the easy to par filter because I'm very confident that TPC Summerlin will play easy. It traditionally does. So fairways, 10% when around is easy. Good drives gained, 5% when it's easy. And this is kind of covering the greens and regulation part. I didn't want to look at greens and regulation gained by themselves since these greens are so easy to hit. So you're kind of combining the fairways aspect there with the greens. If the player does not hit the fairway, are they still adept enough to hit the green in regulation from the rough? I only wanted to put 5% in there because I'm really focused on the fairways, but I do have 5% good drives gained. Second biggest portion of the mixed condition model, total procs. We saw Monday evening in the Data Dive show just how much total procs contributed to these elite finishes, and how players who have played well year over year here at TPC Summerlin generally have some pretty good total procs numbers. Makes a lot of sense. These greens are large, 7,200 square feet on average, in which the average tour green is 6,000 square feet. So procs, you can see, would be a fairly big point. 15% in total procs. And then to round out the mixed condition model, 5% in all par 3s, 5% in all par 4s. I did split out the 400 to 450 par 4s as they are the most important range of par 4s here at TPC Summerlin. 5% there, 10% in all par 5s. There's a look at the mixed condition model for this week and the Shriners. I always like to be transparent and tell you areas that I think could be weak. If off the tee matters, it generally doesn't here at TPC Summerlin, but if off the tee matters, then I'm going to be stone cold dead to that, except for the fairways portion. That's where all my off the tee is focused. But if off the tee in itself matters, if distance matters, if the greens play to a specific speed every single round, fast or average, I could have been a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? A bit more solid, I suppose, in filtering down to the correct speed filter. I'm just not sure which speed it's going to play. If eagles end up mattering a little bit, or if there are more eagles this year than historically, if the par fives matter a little bit more, I would like to have put 15% here. Kind of ran out of percentage since I knew I wanted to put fairways, having a heavy emphasis in procs. So if par fives matter a little bit more, there's some areas where I think I could be weak in the mixed condition model by the end of play Sunday. So with that, let's go ahead and move on over to Microsoft Excel and the reveal of my rankings for this week. My number one player is Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, Adam Hadwin, Adam Shank, and 6K play himself Justin Lauer. Rounds out my top five: JT Poston, Doug Gim, Mark Hubbard, Cam Davis, and Martin Laird round out my top 10. A quick reminder for returning viewers, or some information if you are a new viewer. My rankings are purely on a formula basis. I do not factor in any tee time advantages, especially since like this week there appears to be a fairly strong favor of a Thursday PM, Friday AM wave. I do not factor that into my rankings. My rankings are purely on the numbers from the mixed condition model we just talked about in Fantasy National. I do something called course value, where I attempt to give a player a value on how well they've played that course in the past 5 years. The lower the number, the better. And then, since this is DFS, we are trying to find unique options compared to our fellow contestants. So percent ownage, or percent owned, or projected percent owned, also factors into my rankings. But there's a look at my top 10. Again, a little surprising to see a 6K play in my top 5, but top 20 or close enough in birdies or better gain when it's easy. He plays well and goes low when it's easy. He is one of 3 players. You see JT Poston's also one, but he's one of 3 players that leads on bent surfaces this calendar year. Where Justin Lauer is going to have to improve is in the par 5 scoring. That is one aspect that he could struggle and could possibly lead to his demise. But everything else is pretty darn solid. Also getting helped by the fact that he is at 5% being a 6K play, so he's rising in my rankings with that. And the analytics didn't hate him. He's 13th. Overall, he did top 20 this event last year. Couple of pretty good statistics off here too. The par 4s, 12th and 22nd. So a lot to like with Justin Lauer. No real surprise here, I don't think, with Tom Kim being my number one player. I figured he was going to be in the top 3. Thought Adam Hadwin might give him a run, but the analytics weren't nearly as high on him as I thought they were going to be, especially since he has traditionally played TPC Summerlin very, very well. Probably the second best, or he is the second most strokes gained total the past 5 years here at TPC Summerlin, behind Matthew Neesmith. Just like Justin Lauer, Adam Hadwin is going to have to improve on the par 5s, but it hasn't held him back in terms of success here in the past. Everything else is pretty darn solid. Top 20 still in birdies or better when it's easy. Pretty good in procs, top 40. The irons, middling. Top 10 in putting. The par 4s, just like Justin Lauer, solid, top 10 in both. So a lot going for Adam Hadwin. Interesting note on Siwoo Kim, he is using the broomstick putter this week, or at least I have seen photos surface of him using the broomstick putter. So take that what you will. But he is number 2 in my rankings even without that factored in. He just doesn't have a bad statistic. 53rd, actually he's got another one that's pretty poor at the end, but nothing is shaded red. 53rd here in approach. Fairways gained, 12th. Second in par 5s. And you'll see his worst statistic, 60th. That is his worst. So he has nothing shaded red. Lot to like there with Siwoo Kim. Adam Schenk, and coming off a career year for him. Poston, I'm surprised got as high as he did. I figured he was going to be positive. The analytics really like him, but he has not played this course very well in the past. Yes, he goes low when it's easy. He generally likes short courses as well. He is one of 3 players that is number 1 in terms of bent putting. His total procs has not been good. Everything else is great. JT Poston is probably going to be a fade for me, but we'll get into more of that as we go through the price board. Cam Davis, Martin Laird. So there's a look at my top 10 in terms of rankings. Let's sort on this price board, figure out where our top pivots and our top plays are going to be. So we sort on salary. Damn it. All right, let's get our life together here. One more. Now we sort on the salary. All right, in the 10Ks, just like the poll question, we have 4 players. Ludwig Oberg at 1,100, or God, I keep saying 1,100, 11,000. Tom Kim, 10,900. Cam Davis, 10,300. JT Poston at 10,000 even. You see, Oberg is the lowest rated for me. That's simply because he doesn't have a course value here. So this number I set arbitrarily high just because we don't know if a player is going to like a course before he plays it. So I set that number, relatively high. Again, I mentioned it last week that his irons haven't been all that great, but it didn't stop him last week at the Sanderson Farms. One of the elite talents in this field, no doubt about it. He's going to be much, much more owned than 15.5%. Remember this time last week that Fantasy National showed him at 12.8 or something percent. He ended up going off at 30%. This is another case where I think Ludwig Oberg is going to be in the 25 to 30% range. I think Tom Kim is going to garner a lot more ownership as well. So these two are going to be pretty darn chalky. I think I would expect these percentages to go or to be much, much higher. Again, these are taken straight from Fantasy National. That is where I get my source of information. Oberg is getting hurt there, but almost everything other than the irons are elite. Third in birdies or better when it's easy. Great in proximity. Elite in proximity. So something there is going to have to even out. Either the irons are going to get a lot better or his proximity is going to get a lot worse. One of those two things is going to have to change for this to make a lot of sense. Par 5s. He just devours them. He's good around the green as well, at least for this field. Good drives gained. Par 4s. Lots to like with Oberg. It's a lot of ownership if you're going to use him. I don't blame you if you do. I think I might... last week I was advocating a full fade just due to the ownership. This week I think if you are able to stomach a fade of Tom Kim, I don't think Oberg is a bad play necessarily, but do understand he has a morning tee time tomorrow, so he's on the bad half of the draw, and his ownership is still going to be pretty high. I have to call it a fade, but it's not as strong of a fade as it was last week. Tom Kim, number 1 player in my rankings. I'm going to use him. He also has the good end of the draw. He tees off tomorrow afternoon. So everything points to Tom Kim having a lot of success this week. Number 2 in total procs. Darn good on bent greens, 35th, top 10 in par 5s, which you have to take advantage of here at TPC Summerlin. The par 4s are okay. His worst is around the green. You know, if he's hitting all of his greens or most of his greens in regulation, putting, he's not going to have to worry about around the green. I like Tom Kim a lot. That's some chalk that I won't be able to get away from. I want to like Cam Davis. His ownership has spiked in the past, say, 8 to 10 hours. And I've been burned enough on Cam Davis to be pretty cautious. This feels like it would fit him. But, I mean, he's still not a good putter on bent. I always think about him on bent and Poa annua, not pure bent. But everything else seems pretty darn good. Top 10 in par 5s. Top 10 in around the green, for what it's worth. Top 20 in iron play. Goes decently low. But as this ownership has crept up, I've found myself gravitating to Cam Davis less. And he has an early tee time tomorrow. Talked about JT Poston. To me, this is where you have to go with analytics versus course history. The analytics say everything lines up for JT Poston. Short course, easy course, off the tee, not really a big factor. But he has not played this event well. I believe he is only 2 for 5 in making the cut here at the Shriners in the past 5 years. So this is a classic example of analytics versus course history. I think I'm going to go with the course history here. I'm going to fade JT Poston. And I've talked about how I am fading quite a bit of these except for Tom Kim. So that tells you the kind of lineups I've been building, at least early on in my process. There's a look at the 10Ks. In the 10Ks, I have to make Tom Kim the number 1 player. He's number 1 in my rankings. He might be the most owned player in the entire contest. He's projected number 2 right now behind Adam Schenk in the 9Ks. But it would not surprise me to see Tom Kim be the highest overall owned player. I'm still going to make him the number 1 player in the 10Ks. He's the only one of these 3 that has a Thursday afternoon tee time. He tees off tomorrow afternoon and then Friday morning, which appears to be the better half of the draw. After that, I will probably go Ludwig Ober second, only because of my hesitation on Cam Davis and the fact that I've been burned enough by him, and that's a little bit of a personal bias. So be aware of that. But I think I'm going to go Ober second, Cam Davis third, and JT Poston is close to a full fade, even though he rose to 6th in my rankings. Here's a look at the 10Ks. We'll move to the 9s. Siwoo Kim, Eric Cole, Nikolai Højgaard, Emiliano Grillo, Adam Hadwin, Adam Schenk, and Lucas Herbert. I talked about it last week, and if you thought the Around the Green game was going to play at the Sanderson Farms, Lucas Herbert would be somebody to take a look at, or short game. Same thing applies here. Pretty darn good putter on bent, top 15. He's got a lot of red. The procs has not been good. The irons have not been good. Par 5s, he has not taken advantage of. Even in the Around the Green, this calendar year hasn't been good, but he's a much better Around the Green player than what this is showing. If you want a whole lot of leverage and win equity, however you want to phrase it, on your fellow contestants, you would want to go Lucas Herbert. Surprisingly, Emiliano Grillo actually is a lot very unique at 4%, just like Lucas Herbert. I think this is a drastic overreaction to him missing the cut last week. Having said that, I'm not going to be using Emiliano Grillo much at all, if at all. I like quite a bit here in the 9Ks. Again, speaking to the kinds of lineups that I'm building. I don't hate Emiliano Grillo as a one-off, especially since he's projecting to be so very unique, and he's going to get squeezed out. So I would expect this ownership to be fairly accurate with the amount of chalky, popular plays that are in the 9Ks. So I don't hate Grillo, but I just like a whole lot of others, a whole lot more in the 9K. Speaking speaking to, I want to talk about Nikolai Højgaard. Coming off the Ryder Cup, he played pretty darn well. I don't remember his exact record, but he played pretty darn well. This is his first fall event. Top 10. Birdies are better gained when it's easy. He loves easy courses. Prox has been good. The irons have been good. He's actually been pretty good on bent this calendar year. Where he struggles has been in these fairways, and this rough is not penalizing. It's not hard to play out of. So I see this fitting Nikolai Højgaard pretty darn well. I'm very, very high on Nikolai Højgaard. Top 5 in par 3s as well. I would, if those matter a whole lot. Good enough with the par 5s. I'm also thinking he might get squeezed out a little bit as well. He's been hovering in that 9.5 to 10% range. I'm hoping he gets squeezed in ownership a little bit. We can get a little bit more uniqueness on Nikolai Højgaard. Really, really like Højgaard this week. Just a bit of foreshadowing for my betting card. This was the first name that I punched in on that betting card. Really like Højgaard. I've been targeting him all week. Siwoo Kim, I like a lot. This is a little bit of chalk I won't be able to get away from either. I don't think you're going to be able to play a Tom Kim and Siwoo Kim, considering I fully expect Tom Kim to be about 25%. Would not surprise me to see Siwoo creep up closer to 20%. We talked about it in the reveal of the rankings. Doesn't have a bad statistic. I like Siwoo Kim a lot. I like Adam Hadwin a whole lot. Adam Schenk should be pretty good as well. I'm going to try to stay away from Adam Schenk as much as possible. I know I'm going to use him, so I can't call it a full fade. But he is projecting, at least per Fantasy National, the most owned player. Rightly so. I mean, he's top 10 in bent putting, top 5 in irons in this field. Goes decently low enough. It's the fairways in the around the green, which we've said for seemingly every player so far. So Adam Schenk should be fine, but I am much more so in the Nikolai Højgaard, Adam Hadwin camp, Siwoo Kim camp for the 9Ks. Eric Cole, fine. It's a lot of ownership, and I like Højgaard a whole lot more than him, and I like Hadwin a whole lot more than Eric Cole. But there's no denying that Eric Cole is on quite a bit of a heater. So if you want to ride the hot hand, I mean, you see 6th in my rankings. He did not play this event well last year. It's only one time, small sample size. Did not play this event well last year, and the Shriners has consistently been more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Has been more important past course history than the Sanderson Farms and the Fortinet. Meaning course history has mattered more at the Shriners in the past than the Sanderson Farms and the Fortinet. So I've got a little bit of extra weight here in that course value. That's why he's dropping. But I like Siwoo Kim a lot. I'm all over Nikolai Højgaard. He's going to be one of the 2 or 3 players that I'm going to lose if he does not play well. I'm just going to be extremely overweight on Højgaard. If Adam Hadwin's indeed only 12.5%, I think he's going to be more. If he is indeed 12.5%, I'm going to be overweight on Adam Hadwin. I really like Adam Hadwin as well. So there's a look at the 9s. We move to the 8s. Last week's champion, Luke List. Look, he generally doesn't putt well. He gained 6 strokes on the greens at the Sanderson Farms. You just don't expect that from Luke List. He actually hasn't been the best at hitting fairways either. Not that that's the biggest deal around here. If you want to ride the extremely hot hand, sure. I might throw him in a lineup or 2, especially since he's the second best in this field at birdies are better gained when it's easy. But elsewhere in the 8Ks, Aaron Wright, even though he has not played this event well, this seems like JT Poston, seems like it would suit him a lot. The premium on accuracy, he would need to be better at going low. Birdies are better. He's generally a scrambler, someone who grinds out the pars like a Keith Mitchell, like a Terrell Hatton. But everything else seems like it would probably fit him pretty well. Irons, pretty darn good. He's the number 1 fairways gained player in this field. He's the number 2 player in par 5s. even without with the lack of distance. Number 2 player in par 5s. Number 1 in good drives gained. A lot of that is with the fairways. And if he does miss a fairway, he's generally pretty good enough with his irons that he can hit the green from the rough. Aaron Rai should be pretty darn good, but he has not played this event well. Hoagie, the bent putting is a concern. Everything else looks like it would be good. It's a lot of ownership. Instead, I've been gravitating to Vincent Norman. Coming off the Barbasol win, Barbasol is traditionally one of the easiest tournaments on the PGA Tour. So a winner there this past summer at an easy course. Shriners is easy. Irons have been good. I'm not terribly worried about the putter since Keen Trace, which is the host of the Barbasol, is on bent. Might not be Dominator bent like the Shriners has, but it's still bent. So I'm not concerned about the putting there. Hits enough fairways. Top 10 in par 5s. Top 10 in good drives gained. Gosh dang it, right off your screen. Top 10 in good drives gained. A lot to like with Vincent Norman. He's the second of 2 to 3 players I'm going to just lose if they don't play well. Højgaard and Norman. Let's see, elsewhere in here, in the 8Ks, Andrew Putnam should be pretty good. This is another player that I was kind of targeting early in the week. The more I looked at it, the more he's just not been playing well. Generally, when off the tee doesn't matter, you want to think about Andrew Putnam. But even so, look at the birdies are better. Look at the proximity, especially on these large greens. Not good. He has been really good with the irons, but the putting is mediocre. Around the greens, mediocre, if not a little bad. So he's going to be pretty popular. This is, kind of the second of 2 to 3 players I will lose to if they do play well. If Poston plays well. If Andrew Putnam plays well, I'm going to lose. These are fades for me. A lot of it due, at least in Poston's regard, with the fact of the poor course value, poor course history. Now, Andrew Putnam has played this event extremely well, but he's not in great form. So I'm going to take a chance on the ownership and go other places in the 8Ks than Andrew Putnam. It's a dangerous game I'm playing, but I got to plant my flag somewhere. Svensson surprised me last week in playing very well. I did not like his fit at the Sanderson Farms. This does feel much more like a Adam Svensson course. 34th in my rankings, but you see he's getting hurt with that course value. He did not play it well in the 3 times he has played this event. He's played this multiple times and has shown he has not liked this course. So I'm going to be leaning into that, I believe. Hostler should be fine. I like the 9%, just not as confident as I was in him at the Fortinet. Kind of like I was feeling last week. Just not as confident in Hostler this week. Hubbard and Bezadenhout, I'm going to go with Seabez. I've been on the Seabez train seemingly for a while now. He played pretty darn well last week. So I do like Christian Bezadenhout of these two. I think Hubbard's fine. I just understand that's a whole lot of ownership. So in the 8Ks, JJ Spawn's also fine. We didn't talk about. So Spawn's kind of mediocre. I like the player a lot. I don't like this ownership too much. I think he's got 2 bad things going for him. Birdies are better when it's easy. He hasn't been the best. In fact, he's been pretty bad. And then bent putting hasn't been very good. But the irons have been spectacular. The proximity's been elite. 4th in good drives gained. He's got a lot going for him. Like the player, don't like the ownership. Aaron Rai should be fine, but I'm leaning more towards this course value. He hadn't played this very well. I'm all in on Vincent Norman, or at least I'm going to be overweight on Vincent Norman. Hoagie should be fine. That's a lot of ownership, so I don't know how that's probably a fade, but everything says that he should play pretty well. I'm going to fade because of the ownership. Smalley's fine. I might throw List in once or twice just because he's hot, but I would not expect a repeat performance from last week. the big takeaways in the 8Ks. I'm going to fade Andrew Putnam, play a dangerous game there, and I'll go with Seabez over Hubbard at 8,000. But Vincent Norman is where I'm at a lot in the 8Ks. Moving into the upper sevens, I wanted to like Justin Suh for DFS. The irons haven't been great. He is the third of the three that are number one in bent putting this calendar year. But he's a bit of all or nothing here. Birdies are better, gained is middling, but then the prox is good, approach is bad. Putting's elite, fairways is good, but then he's got three statistics here that are really bad. Par 5s, good drives gained, and he rounds off the par 3s and the par 4s being very good. 30th, 20th, and 20th. So a bit of all or nothing there with Justin Suh. I've chosen to make my exposure to Justin Suh in a different way. A little bit of foreshadowing again for my betting card. Higo, I was all on last week, and he played well, top 20, nothing to scoff at. I do have a little bit more concern this week with Higo. The putter is much better, but the irons still aren't there. The par 5s, I'm going to have Higo for sure, but I'm much more into the Doug Gim territory here, even with a poor putter. As bad of a putter as Doug Gim is, you see, even his putter is, mediocre on bent. By far his preferred surface. And Doug Gim is one of two players, he's the second of two players that doesn't have a bad statistic. Just like Siwoo Kim, Doug Gim top 30, a couple of top 20s there, the middling putter. And to say middling putter with Doug Gim is saying something because he is not a good putter like Luke List. Top 10 in fairways. Par 5s, he's fine. Around the green, top 20. Second in good drives gained. Fourth and first. First at the specific length of par 4s that are most prevalent here at TPC Summerlin. Fourth in par 4s in general. I like Doug Gim a lot. This is some chalk I won't be able to get away from. I want to like Alex Noren, but man, that the proximity's bad, fairways are bad. It's a lot of ownership you're gaining, a lot of uniqueness you're gaining. So I don't hate it as kind of a one-off. Let's see, elsewhere in the upper sevens, I talk about him every week. S.H. Kim should be pretty good. He generally played the fall pretty well last year. He had a very poor first round at the Sanderson Farms and then shoots 5 under on Friday, misses the cut on the number. He's kind of like who I was talking about up here in the all or nothing category, J.J. Spawn, I think is who I was talking about. Kind of all or nothing. He's got some very good statistics and some very, very bad ones. Birdies are better when it's easy. Good. Proximity and irons have been atrocious. Fairways have been atrocious. Par 5s have been stellar. Around the green's been stellar. So, you see, very good course value. It's only one time. He did top 5 this last year. I think he's worth a one-shot, one-off, but he's going to be much more owned than the Alex Noren one-off if you take it. But he is certainly a pivot off of the Davis Thompson, the Doug Gim. I just really like Doug Gim, and I'm going to use a little bit of Garrett Higo as well in the upper sevens. Moving to the low sevens, mid and low sevens. Sam Ryder going to be very, very popular. Number 1 in irons in this field. Never a bad thing. He's played TPC Summerlin fairly well. Just understand he's going to be so widely owned. Almost have to fade him because of the ownership. If you've been unique enough away from the 10Ks or unique enough in the 8s and 9s, you might be able to get away with the Sam Ryder, but it's a lot of ownership. Austin Eckroat is somebody that I want to highlight for you all. Only one bad statistic and is coming in at 5%. Proximity's good. Top 20 in putting. Top 20 in fairways. So a lot going for Austin Eckroat. Again, he's only played this event one time. Don't get too hung up on the course value. Peter Quest. He was technically number 2 in my rankings. He was my number 1 player last week. And he played fine. Top 20, I think he finished. Maybe top 25. I don't think he had a stellar Sunday. But Peter Quest, number 1. Birdies are better gained on easy courses. And if there's anything that we know about TPC Summerlin, it's easy. So Peter Quest, the proximity is going to have to improve, no doubt about it. But top 30 or top 40 in irons, top 15 bent putter. You think about his run that the John Deere, where he really made a name for himself. He also played the Barbasol extremely well. Both of those places are bent. He putts pretty darn well on bent, and he takes advantage of par 5s. I love Peter Quest again this week. He is a little bit lower in my rankings. The course value has more emphasis, and he doesn't have any course history. He's a little bit lower in the FNGC rank this week, but I still am using a whole lot of Peter Quest. He's the 3rd of the 3 players that, if they don't play well, I'm going to lose. Højgaard, Norman, Peter Quest. Those 3 I'm very, very high on. I'm going to be extremely overweight on. Calvin Tarrant looked like he should play pretty well. He generally, I would have thought, played tougher courses well. But you see, birdies are better. Top 40. 12th in irons in this field. So don't ignore Calvin Tarrant. Party Marty Laird. He is a former champion. Won this 3 years ago. Sub 10%. I would have never thought Martin Laird would be sub 10% here. But if you are confident that Martin Laird's going to be in that 10% range, fire up some Martin Laird. Former champion here. He's 4 for 5 or maybe even 5 for 5 at making the cut here the past 5 years. Bent putting. Excellent. Hits plenty of fairways. He might not have the upper echelon elite statistics that these other players have, but still 10th in my rankings, and he has great course history. Nick Taylor fits as well. I'm surprised he's only sitting at 4%. I would think Nick Taylor's going to be a little bit higher owned than that. Another player that is a lot like Martin Laird, doesn't have a lot of these elite statistics, but they're not bad. Top 30 in birdies are better. Approach has been fine. Putter has been fine on bent. Think about his win at his home open. So I like Nick Taylor. Matthew Neesmith is the chalky play down here for very good reason. Strokes gained total leader the past 5 years here at TPC Summerlin. He's got by far the best course history, minus maybe Tom Kim, who's 1 for 1 with a win. But of the people who have played the Shriners consistently year over year, he is by far the best in terms of course value. Doesn't go the lowest with the birdies when it's easy, but again, it hasn't stopped him from playing well here. Proximity and irons are good. A lot of his is in this good drives gain in the par 4s. So take a look at Matthew Neesmith. He is going to be the most chalky play down here, but for good reason. To round out the 7Ks at 7,000 even, Chad Ramey rated out extremely well, just like he did last week. And Ramey played fairly well last week. Looks like he's garnering a lot more attention this week. Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. I'm at other places. Like, I would play Matthew Neesmith even if he is 2% more owned. I'm just more confident in Matthew Neesmith. I would much rather play Martin Laird and Nick Taylor if you can find the 100 for him. Peter Quest, much more so if you can find 200 in your pricing. At 7,000, Kevin Yu. I seemingly talk about him a lot. I do like Kevin Yu this week. He has not played well. Didn't play well last week. He had a couple bad holes that really squandered his Friday. Okay, not awful. But really, I'm just kind of at the basement, or for me, my floor is kind of Matthew Neesmith, Martin Laird, Nick Taylor at 71. But I don't hate Kevin Yu. And take a look at Chad Ramey, although he's garnering some attention. In the sixes, I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't been down here a lot. I've mentioned how I am not using a whole lot of those 10K plays. Tells you the kind of lineups I'm building. But if you are down here, I'll try to give you a couple of names. Again, this is an easy course. Easy tournament. Ryan Palmer plays easy course as well. You saw what he did last week at the Sanderson Farms, top 25ing, I believe it was, as a 6K play. Again, very, very unique. I don't see any reason why Ryan Palmer won't be serviceable for you in your stars and scrubs lineups. And he's played this event, fairly well in years past. A lot of people seem to be on Eric Van Rooyen, and I'm not there. Instead, you can take a look at Matty Schmidt. Don't hate it. Good with the birdies or better. He's actually been pretty darn good with the putter as well. He's got a lot of horrible statistics a lot further on over here to the right. So you're kind of playing him for the pop ability, the home run play, if you will. Be able to get a lot of birdies when it's easy. A lot of that thanks to the putter. But if I'm in the 6Ks, I'm just going to go to Justin Lauer. 5th in my rankings, 5%. Top 20, or essentially top 20 in birdies or better when it's easy. Top 20 in both procs and strokes gained approach. One of the 3 players that are number 1 in bent grass putting. Par 4s are excellent. So if I'm in the 6Ks, I'm going to Justin Lauer. There's a look at the price board for the Shriners this week and where I feel some good values, your top pivots and top fades are. For those who play tiers contests, we're going to go through some tiers contests real quick. So get your questions ready for classic lineups and all that. We'd be happy to answer them. And don't forget to please fill out the poll question and submit your answer for that in chat. For those who play tiers contests, tier 1, you have Ludwig Aubert, Tom Kim, and Cam Davis. He's probably going to be the most chalky play in the 10K or in the tier 1. I got to go with Tom Kim. He is the only player in the 10Ks and in this tier who has the Thursday afternoon, Friday morning tee time, the better half of the draw. So I'm just extremely confident in Tom Kim playing well this week. So give me Tom Kim in tier 1. Tier 2, JT Poston, Siwoo Kim, Eric Cole, Nikolai Højgaard, and Adam Hadwin. Dang, there's a lot that I like in here. Normally I would have said Siwoo Kim. Nikolai Højgaard, I've said I was very, very high on Nikolai Højgaard. He's your home run option in tier 2, I think. The boomer bust. Adam Hadwin is so extremely consistent. I'm going to take Adam Hadwin only because I think in a tiers contest, his ownership gets squeezed a little bit. I could be wrong with this. But I see Poston garnering probably a lot of attention in tier 2. I think Siwoo Kim and Eric Cole are going to garner a lot of attention in tier 2. So give me Adam Hadwin in tier 2. I'm very confident in the prior course history. He's played extremely well here. I don't think the ownership is going to be so high that you're matching a lot of your fellow contestants. So I'm going to start with Tom Kim and go Adam Hadwin. I really do like Højgaard, and I'll make Siwoo Kim 3rd. But I like all 3 of them. Tier 3, Grillo, Adam Schenk, Lucas Herbert, JJ Spawn, and Aaron Rye. Ugh. As much as I like tier 2, I don't like tier 3. Spawn could be interesting, I suppose. I mean, the best play is clearly Adam Schenk. But he's probably going to be so widely the most owned in tier 3. If you're worried about your ownership, take JJ Spawn. I think I'm going to be able to find enough unique plays where I will take Adam Schenk in tier 3, even if he is the most chalky. Tier 4, Vincent Norman, Tom Hoge, Alex Smalley, Luke List, Andrew Putnam, Adams Vincent, and Christian Bezadenhout. Let me get out of the way. For me, it's between Norman and Bezadenhout. Seabez is, kind of the hot hand. He played well at the Sanderson Farms. Should fit this course. He's played it fairly well. So if you want the safety, take Bezadenhout. I'm going to take Vincent Norman. I'm pretty darn confident in Vincent Norman this week. A little more of a home run option, I think. But because I took Hadwin and the seeming safety in Tier 2, I'm going to take Vincent Norman and try to hit the home run in Tier 4. And I think he's probably going to be one of the more unique options in Tier 4. So give me Vincent Norman. Tier 5, Bo Hostler, Mark Hubbard, Justin Suh, Garrett Higo, Doug Gim, Davis Thompson, and Patrick Rogers. Hostler should be fine. Hubbard's going to garner a lot of attention, probably for good reason. I'll just take Doug Gim, even if he is the most or second most projected owned player in the tier. I'm just pretty confident in Doug Gim, especially on bent where he's not an abject failure on the greens. You see number one player by just the pure analytics. So give me Doug Gim in Tier 5. And then to finalize this, don't even have to swivel out of the way. Tier 6, we have Chesson Hadley, Chad Ramey, David Lipsky, Kevin Yu, Webb Simpson, MJ Duffy. I feel like I forgot one. Yeah, I did. And Martin Laird. I knew I forgot one. For me, it's between Martin Laird and Kevin Yu. I think it's Martin Laird, even if he is the most popular play. I just really like Martin Laird. Kevin Yu's kind of interesting. But this tier's construction, in totality, I'll go Tom Kim. I'll go Adam Hadwin. I'll go Adam Schenk. We'll go Vincent Norman. Doug Gim. And Martin Laird. So that's how I would construct a tiers lineup and my thoughts on tiers contests. Let's move to Classic and see how we can maneuver around some of these chalky lineups that are getting built by our fellow contestants. So our fellow contestants, I'm going to use Tom Kim. He is at right now the most projected owned player per Fantasy National in the 10Ks. This could be Ludwig Aubert as well. I could see each of them garnering 25 to 30% ownership. But I'll go with Tom Kim. Looks like our fellow contestants are trying to get squeeze in an Eric Cole as well. At the bottom, there aren't a lot of 6K plays getting used. The most is Harry Hall, 7.5%. Eric Van Rooyen's close to 6%. Otherwise, you've got Chad Ramey and Matthew Neesmith down at the bottom half of the price board for our fellow contestants. So if those are our boundaries, we got a lot to try to squeeze in here for our fellow contestants and the kind of lineups they're making. Might have to use Chad Ramey and Neesmith because it does appear that Eric Cole is getting quite a bit of love. This would be Sam Ryder at 74, or Smy Ryder, as I'll try to say, which leaves 7,800. Take your pick. Doug Gim, Davis Thompson, could be either one of these. I'll go with Davis Thompson just because I'm going to try to save Doug Gim for some lineups that I'm making. But there's a look at a potentially pretty chalky, I'll call it balanced build, just because they're not dropping into the 6Ks. Tom Kim and Eric Cole, and then rounding out with Davis Thompson and Sam Ryder, Neesmith and Ramey. If they're really, really digging into the stars and scrubs, let's say they go Ludwig, Aubert, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do this. It's going to be, I just don't see any way you're going to be able to do that. At least the members of Fantasy National, because there's not a lot in the 10Ks that are getting or in the 6Ks that are getting garnered. Harry Hall at 7%. If we go all the way down to Harry Hall, we were still at that 7,100 mark. That's tough to try to squeeze through. It's Matthew Neesmith. It's, gosh dang it, son of a Chad Ramey. 73. Oh, Sam Ryder's 100 more. Nobody's getting any love at the 7,300 level. So you see the difficulty. You can try to squeeze in both of those players. Instead, maybe come down to Siwoo. Let's see, Siwoo. I'm trying to use some different names. Maybe Mark Hubbard. Yeah, that'll do it. In fact, let's try. This might be too much. Sam Ryder, 7,000 is Chad Ramey. So a little bit more unique, only because dropped into the sixes to try and find the most popular 6K play per Fantasy National, which is Harry Hall. But again, what looks like a fairly chalky looking stars and scrubs with Ludwig Aubert, Siwoo Kim, dropping Harry Hall, Chad Ramey as well, Sam Ryder getting a lot of love, and then Mark Hubbard. If our fellow contestants are going balanced, a lot of ways that they're going, but we'll start with Adam Schenk, getting quite a bit of love. Then JJ Spawn, Tom Hoagie. We'll throw Putnam in this. 7,500 easy. Sam Ryder, Matthew Neesmith. I mean, you can move this around a little bit too. This could be Doug Gim maybe, but another 15%. And what looks like a balanced construction starting with Schenk or maybe Eric Cole, and then moving on down into a lot of the eights with Spawn and Hoagie, Putnam, Sam Ryder, Matthew Neesmith. Again, very, very easy way you can adjust this. This could be Eric Cole. And take a couple hundred off. This could be Davis Thompson. That's right at 50,000. Similar style ownerships and lineup constructions. So with that, how are we going to maneuver around this and build what we think are going to be unique enough lineups that we can really rise in these big GPPs? Well, I'll start with the lineups that are stars and scrubs, because I have not been building those a lot. And I mentioned it. If I'm using a 6K play, it's just Justin Lauer. 5th in my rankings, number 1 in a couple of metrics, goes low when it's easy, or gets plenty of birdies when it's easy. Really like Justin Lauer at 5%. For a stars and scrubs, because I am taking a really unique option here, I feel like I can take Tom Kim. You don't have to by any means, because he is going to be much more widely owned than 17%. I would expect him in the 25% range. So you can easily come off of Tom Kim. I'm just extremely confident in Tom Kim. I can also go with Cam Davis. I don't hate Cam Davis, and everything lines up says it should be pretty good for him. A little bit more wary about Cam Davis, but there's a look at a beginning of a stars and scrubs lineup. Doesn't look like you'll have the ability to go into the 8Ks, maybe 8,000 or 8,100 if you wanted a Christian Bezadenhout. I don't think it's going to work. And you have a 7,100 per player if you wanted to squeeze just a little bit more of greed into this. You have 7,100 per player, so you could go something like Martin Laird and Nick Taylor, who I like quite a bit this week. Right at 50,000, a little bit over the 10% magic threshold, but more than likely you're looking at a pretty unique lineup with Lauer. Martin Laird doesn't look like he's getting a whole lot of love. Looks like a pretty darn unique lineup, and you can always come off of Tom Kim. Some other options down here. I mentioned Kevin Yu, Chad Rainey. That was the 7,100 both. You could use Peter Quest as well. So there's a look at a potential Stars and Scrubs lineup to try to gain some uniqueness. But where I've been going a whole lot is in these balanced builds or maybe balanced -1, if you will. And I have no problem starting my lineups with Højgaard. I'm just all in on Højgaard this week. I think this is gonna fit him pretty well. Looks like he's getting squeezed a little bit in ownership with JJ Spawn, with Eric Cole and Siwoo, Adam Shank. So I'll go Højgaard, and I really like Adam Hadwin too. And I wouldn't be surprised if Hadwin's a little bit more owned than 12%, but two players that look like they're getting squeezed in the 9Ks in terms of ownership, and I'm very confident in both of them. Like the way that lineup has started, coming down into the 8s. I mentioned I really like Vincent Norman. He's a bit more all or nothing, so if you're not terribly comfortable with that, you can pivot away from that. Maybe going Alex Smalley, Bo Hostler, Christian Bezadenhout, but Vincent Norman in the upper 7s. I like Doug Gim. A lot. He's going to be the most popular player in this lineup construction, I think, but I don't see any reason why he won't play extremely well, especially since his weakest stat generally is his putter, and he putts bent pretty darn well. At the bottom, again, it's an easy course. I'm gonna go with Peter Quest until he proves that he is not playing well or is not playing well on easy courses. I'm just going to stick with Peter Quest. And then at 73, not a whole lot in here. You got Austin Eckroat, who I don't hate, Davis Riley, Nick Hardy. Fill out how you'd like. I'll go with Austin Eckroat. But just kind of moving some money around in there. But there's an example of a balanced lineup that I've been building, or balanced, maybe -1 if I do feel a little adventurous and maybe drop down to Justin Lauer and do like the balanced -1, the 6K play. But there's a sub 10% lineup that I really think Højgaard has as good a chance as any to win this tournament. Adam Hadwin has had some of the best course history here. Doug Gim is on quite a bit of a run of good form. I just like the course fit for Vincent Norman and how he played similar style courses well and won the Barbasol. Shriners plays quite a bit like that. Bent greens, very easy. Peter Quest. So there's a look at the kind of lineups that I've been building most often, is these balanced lineups. And you can move this around. You can go Siwoo Kim and Adam Hadwin, Siwoo Kim, and then drop down to maybe a JJ Spawn or an Aaron Rye. But that looks like it's going to do it for the show this evening. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, watching, listening, supporting the channel. I always appreciate it. Love what I do. Trying to give you all advice from a statistician's perspective. Trying to win a little bit of money in the process. Thanks again for all of the support. And make sure you go, if you want to see my betting cards, I'll place that on X and Twitter after the show this evening. For all of the wagers you have made this week for the Shriners, for all the DFS contests you've entered this week for the Shriners, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.